Dear students, now we are going to discuss about the story Avon's Tries an O-Level Part 1. Introduction. This story Avon's Tries an O-Level is written by Norman Colin Textor. He was an English writer known for his Inspector Morse series of novels. The story about a cunning prisoner Avons who makes a plan to escape from the prison on the day of his German language O-Level exam. Let us see the important characters of this story. James Roderick Evans, a cunning prisoner, Secretary of the Examination Board, Governor of HM Prison, Mr. Jackson, a senior prison officer, Mr. Stephens, a prison officer, and Reverend Stuart McCleary, an invigilator, Mr. Carter, a detective superintendent, Mr. Bell, a detective chief inspector. Let us see the summary of the story. This story, Evans Tries an O-Level, starts with a telephonic conversation between the governor and the Secretary of Examination Board. The governor confirmed that there was only one person for the examination, named Evans. Evans started taking night classes in O-Level of German language last September. He was interested in achieving educational qualification. The secretary asked whether Evans was good at studies or not. The governor replied that he was the only one who attended classes. The secretary replied that he would send all the forms required for the examination, and he asked the prisoner's name. The secretary also sought clarification whether Evans was a violent person or not. The governor said that there was no such record. He was a nice person. He also added that he suffered from kleptomania, which urged him to steal. Kleptomania means a very strong desire to steal something that you cannot control. Kleptomania, a person suffering from kleptomania. And the secretary asked the governor if he could arrange a room for exam. The governor replied that there was no such problem because Evans was in his own lockup. His own cell has been changed into an exam hall. The governor also told him that they would call a searchman from a nearby church, Saint Mary Max, who would keep a check on Evans during the examination. The secretary laughed that the church had good number of priests and one could be assigned the job for invigilation. The governor laughed and thanked him for accepting his request. He then put a receiver of the phone back on rest and called for Evans. Evans had escaped from prison thrice earlier. The governor did not want to be disgraced by Evans. Evans was not a burden, but his presence was uncomfortable. The governor planned to supervise him personally when he visited Oxford prison. It was possible that Evans was actually interested in adding up to his qualification by learning German. On the 7th of June, Monday at 8:30 p.m., the German teacher shook hands with Evans at the high security recreational block which was across the D wing. He wished him luck in German language, but Evans could not understand it. Later, Evans realized it and thanked the teacher. The teacher commented that Evans was not prepared and did not even have slightest chance to pass the exam. Evans said it was possible that he cleared the exam and would surprise everyone. Next morning at 8:30, Evans was visited by two men. He tucked his dirty sewing vest into his dirty trousers and stood up for his bed that was attached to a wall. He greeted Mr. Jackson cheerfully and said that it was an honor for him that he visited his cell early in the morning. Jackson was senior prison officer of D Wing, and both Jackson and Evans were enemies. Mr. Stephens, who was newly appointed officer and a strong-looking man, had come along with Mr. Jackson. Jackson greeted him briefly and then asked him about his well-being and made fun of him by calling him as Einstein. Evans had not shaved and he was wearing dirty hat on his head. He asked Jackson to excuse him as he was going to shave when both of them entered his cell. After hearing him, Jackson told Stephen that he reminded him that Stephen should take away his razor as soon as he had completed shaving. Evans was always worried about how his hands looked. Jackson replied that he took his nail file too. Evans got angry and his eyes started glowing with anger. Jackson was ready for this and he was answered that it was governor's order. Jackson told Evans that he had only half an hour to get ready and also told him to remove his dirty hat. Evans moved his hand towards his dirty woolen hat and smiled sadly. He told Mr. Jackson that he wanted to take it with him as it was his lucky charm. Evans knew that Jackson was sympathetic towards him. Jackson allowed him to wear the hat just once. He also teased him by calling him Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple was an actress who had long wavy hair. Jackson hated Evans' long and wavy hair. He then asked him to shave. At 8:45 a.m., Stuart McLeary, who was a member of the church, left his bachelor flat uh, in Broad Street. McCreary was wearing a black overcoat and a clerical hat. To protect himself from the rainfall that started within half an hour, it had also splashed water on his spectacles. He was carrying a small brown-colored suitcase in his right hand. It had all the things required for his morning duties, such as sealed question paper envelope, a yellow supervisor form, a special permission card that verified him as a supervisor, and a knife to cut the seal of the paper, and Bible. The 2-hour exam was planned to begin at 9:15 a.m. Stephens brought in two small square tables. He put them opposite each other in the small space between the bed and the painted wall. He then brought in two chairs was placed in front of the table, which was near the cell door. Jackson made a small final appearance and asked Evans to behave properly. Evans turned and showed his acceptance. Jackson ordered Evans to remove the posters which Evans had pinned up on the cell wall. He then asked him why the officers had put a microphone in his cell, and he turned his head towards the space above the door. Jackson admitted that the microphone was not put perfectly as Evans easily spotted it. Evans questions him why they think that he would run. Jackson told him that even he did not trust him because already he had escaped from the prison thrice. So he would watch him like a bird that keeps its eye on its prey. He finally asked him to keep his nose clean and Evans agreed. Jackson wished him good luck before leaving the cell. In the little lodge just inside the prison's main gates, the Reverend S. McCleary signed his name neatly in the visitor's book, walked side by side with the silent prison officer across the exercise yard to D Wing, where he was greeted by Jackson. The wing's heavy outer door was unlocked and locked behind them, the heavy inner door the same, and McCleary was handed into Stephen's keeping. McCleary joined Stephens. Jackson ordered Stephens to remove the razor from the cell. Stephen agreed. He also told him to keep a close watch. McCleary made a vibrating sound while climbing up the stairs, following his new guide. When they reached the entrance of the cell, Stephens opened the peephole and informed McCleary that he was the person who had to take the exam. Evans was sitting quietly, facing the door slightly away from the two tables. He was concentrating on elementary German grammar. Stephens took one of the keys from the ring and opened the lock. At 9:10, the governor switched on the receiver of the microphone. He ordered Jackson to tell Evans to be careful as they had installed a microphone in his cell. He thought that it would be a good to forewarn him. He thought that how could Evans think of escaping that day? He could have tried it when he was at the recreation block because it was easier to escape from there. But today he was locked in his cell. All the officers were closely watching him. There are two doors between his cell and the yard. There were walls as high. Yes, Evans was totally safe now. The governor thought that there will be no problem if he keeps the receiver switched on, but he was still in doubt. He was worried about Evans taking too much advantage of McClure. He thought that they had taken away all the possible weapons from Evans, but there were chances that McClure could have brought some weapon unknowingly with him, such as jackknife, which is a large knife with a folding blade. Even Evans could hold him as a captive for forcing the prison officers to release him. Just at the moment, Jackson came and asked McClure to come outside for a minute. He explained about the governor's reasons for being worried. McClure cooperated him in the checking process by holding out his arms so that he could be checked. Jackson started checking him very fast. He then found something hard, which McClure said was his reading glasses. To be more sure, he even checked his suitcase. He checked each envelope and carefully searched everything with his palms. He also went roughly through the Holy Writ and the church times. Everything was fine, but there was one thing in the suitcase that was strongly confusing him. Jackson asked McClure as to why he had brought a half-filled rubber ring. A rubber ring which was not even fit for a small child with 12-inch waist. He asked him whether he was going for a swim. McClure, who till now seemed very friendly, suddenly changed because of the tasteless joke he made. So he told him that he suffers from hemorrhoids and when he has to sit for a long time, he left his sentence incomplete. Jackson felt very awkward but felt sorry for asking him all that. He then later discovered a paper knife in the suitcase and said that he hoped McClure did not mind if he kept it with him. McClure inquired Evans about having a watch. He answered yes. He said that he will tell him when to start and he will again tell him when only 5 minutes will be left. McClure gave him instructions about where to write the index number, center number, etc. He quietly followed it. Evans complained of not being able to concentrate if someone will be constantly be watching him like this. He also felt sorry for this. Governor called Jackson and ordered him to get Stephens out of the cell as he thought they were doing it bit too much. The governor heard the exchanges in the cell, heard the door clanged once more, and heard McClure announce that the examination had begun at last. The governor listened and smiled because he had taken German as a language when he was in sixth class. Meanwhile, he received a call from magistrate. There was a need of a prison van and some officer as there was a remand case. Within the next 2 minutes, the governor thought it be a fake call, but then he thought that he was thinking too much. His imagination was getting out of control. For the first 15 minutes, Stephens had looked into the cell through the peephole after a gap of every minute and then after the gap of 2 minutes. At 10:45 am, everything seemed normal. When he looked through the hole, There was no difference and it remained the same always. Evans was always chewing his pen and looking at the front. McCleary always seated on his chair, a bit tilted on one side with his face partly turned. Stephens had noticed him earlier that his hair was cut very short. The fingers of the left hand were nicely manicured. He was softly touching his black beard. At 10:51, Stephens opened the peephole and was surprised to see Evans sitting with a blanket on his shoulders. It seemed strange to him, and he even thought of reporting Jackson for this new change he had noticed. But then he told himself that he should not behave so foolish, as there is no sun on this side of prison, not even in summers. It is normal that the cell gets chilly, so he decided to return back to his every minute check through the peephole. At 11:20, once again the governor's phone rang. Meanwhile, McCleary told Evans that only 5 minutes were left for the exam to be completed. Governor was still doubtful about something, but he went to receive the call. At 11:22, Jackson shouted to Stephens as the governor wanted to talk him. He ran up and listened carefully to each and everything ordered to him. It was his duty to accompany McCleary to the main gate of the prison. Stephens had to be fully assured about Avon's cell being properly locked. When McCleary leaves it at 11:25 am, the governor heard the final talks between the Evans and McCleary. McCleary asked Evans to stop writing. He also told him to arrange his seats in order. Then the sound of the movement of chairs was heard. Evans said thank you to McCleary. The governor heard the final shutting down of the door. The exam was over. Stephen asked McCleary, did Evans' exam go well? McCleary said he didn't think so. His Scottish accent seemed a bit different from the earlier one. Moreover, his overcoat was now reaching close to his knees, leading to the imagination that he had suddenly turned slim. Stephens was happy as the governor chose him over Jackson to accompany McCleary off the premises. Everything was done fine this day, as he thought. Stephens wanted to see Evans for one last time. When he looked inside through it, he cried, "Oh Christ," as he was shocked to see the situation inside. For a few seconds he thought it was Stephens on his chair, but it was not so. The churchman was lying back. His hair was drenched in blood. The blood was flowing down greatly from his beard to his collar and then on his black overcoat. Stephen shouted for Jackson so loudly that even McCreary, whose ear was filled with blood, was able to hear it. The churchman was weakly searching for the hanky to stop the blood flowing from his head. The hanky got caught in the blood. He cried out of pain. By the time Jackson came and ordered Stephens to call police and ambulance, McCleary raised himself and tells them that they should not worry about him as he is fine. He asked for the governor as he knew where Evans had gone. The blood was splashing down from his head. Stephens and Jackson supported McCleary to the governor's office. His face was coated with dry blood when he was greeted by the governor at the prison yard. Now the governor looked confused. He could not understand what would happen inside the prison. Dear children, this is what the summary about Evans Rise and O-Level Part 1. So Part 1 has until Evans escaping from the prison. And after escaping from the prison, what would happen was discussed in Part 2. Thank you children.